So today we're going to break down a really fascinating service called ApexMed Insights. Their big claim? They use AI to perform what they call health forensics, basically a high-resolution investigation deep inside your own body. It's a pretty bold promise. So what does that actually mean, and how does it all work? Let's dive in.
The entire premise of this service really kicks off with one fundamental question they're asking all of us. Is that yearly physical you get really telling you the whole story? Could there be subtle signals getting missed, the kind of quiet clues that pop up way before a major health problem ever shows its face?
And this is the core metaphor they use to explain what they do. They argue that standard medicine is kind of like a basic sketch of your health. It shows you the main roads, the big stuff. But what they're offering, they claim, is more like a high-resolution GPS for your biology. Something that can show you the hidden back alleys, potential traffic jams, and maybe even find you some shortcuts to better health.
All right, so if you want to get your hands on this biological GPS, where do you even start? Well, the journey begins with what they call the roadmap. And this is the first part of their two-step system.
That first step is to buy this roadmap. And here's the most important thing to understand about this initial €200 fee. You're not actually buying a test kit or anything physical. You're buying information.
So what in the world does €200 get you? Well, it gets you their intellectual property. It's a highly curated list of advanced biomarkers that their AI is designed to analyze later. We're talking about a list that covers 17 different dimensions of your biology, looking at things that go way beyond a standard checkup. For example, things like ApoB for a much deeper look at cardiovascular risk, or HOMA-IR to check for insulin resistance potentially years before you'd ever get a diabetes diagnosis.
Okay, but just having the map is one thing. A map is pretty useless until you actually go on the journey. And this next part is all about turning that list into real, usable data. And, well, this is where the real cost comes in. The actual process is pretty straightforward, but it does put all the legwork on you. First, you download the list you just bought. Then you have to take that list to a lab, any lab you choose, to get all the actual blood work done. Once you get those results back from the lab, you upload them to ApexMed, and that's what triggers their AI to start its analysis.
And I've got to stress this point because they're very upfront about it too. That initial €200 fee does not cover the biggest expense in this whole process. It's only for their proprietary list of what to test for. The actual lab tests themselves, which you pay for directly to the lab, can easily run you over €1,000. So that's the real financial commitment you need to make just to gather all the data points for that high-resolution map you bought. Okay, so let's say you've made that investment. You've gotten the tests done, you've submitted all your data. What happens next? Well, now you get to the real core of their service, the AI-driven forensic analysis, which they packaged into something called the Executive Health Dossier.
And this is their premium, top-tier product. Getting the full AI analysis and the detailed interpretation of all that complex biological data comes with a price tag of €2,500.
So for that price, what are they actually delivering? They claim they have 14 synchronized AI systems that perform this incredibly deep forensic review of your biology. The whole focus, they say, isn't on your symptoms, but on digging down to find the root cause, the primary failure point in your system, so they can build you a personalized roadmap to optimize everything.
Of course, all this talk about data and AI sounds really impressive. But the real question is, what can it actually find? To answer that, they've shared a few anonymized case studies to show what they say is the real-world power of this kind of analysis.
So the very first case study they present is a big one. It's all about the early prediction of a very serious disease.
The claim here is pretty staggering. They say their AI found these subtle patterns in an otherwise healthy client's data that pointed towards pancreatic cancer developing within the next 1 to 2 years. This apparently allowed them to get targeted imaging that confirmed the risk, intercepting it at a stage that would have been completely invisible during a normal checkup.
Their next case study shifts focus to brain health and the potential for heading off cognitive decline before it even starts.
In this situation, the system apparently detected these tiny, early signs of neurotransmitter issues and brain inflammation in a client who had absolutely no symptoms. The AI predicted a cognitive decline within 5 years, which was reportedly confirmed by follow-up tests, allowing them to jump on a preventive strategy immediately.
This third case is really interesting because it's so counterintuitive. It's something the company calls the holistic paradox, where a choice that seems perfectly healthy might actually be causing harm.
So get this. A client was on a diet they thought was the picture of health, but their biomarkers were showing signs of metabolic stress. The AI, without even being told about the diet, supposedly identified it as the problem and revealed exactly how that specific healthy protocol was a total mismatch for the client's biology, driving a major hormonal imbalance.
And the final case study they share is probably the most dramatic of them all. It's about reversing a very serious diagnosis. Imagine this. A client was getting ready to start cancer treatment based on some suspicious lab results, but the AI analysis came back and basically said, hold on, we think this is a false positive. It saw a whole complex web of other markers that just didn't add up. And sure enough, they say a subsequent specialized biopsy confirmed the AI was right. No cancer was present. So after walking through the process, the costs, and these pretty wild case studies, how should we think about a service like this? Well, they position it not as a replacement for your doctor, but as a completely new way of understanding your own health.
This table really sums up their whole philosophy. They say a traditional doctor's job is to ask, what disease do you have, and then figure out how to treat it. They claim their AI's job is to ask a totally different question: where is the biological failure point, and then figure out how to optimize the whole system. They're not trying to be your doctor, they're trying to be the ultimate second opinion.
Which brings us right to the final thought they want to leave you with, and they use this very specific language. As these incredibly powerful new tools for analyzing our own biology become available, it really forces us all to ask a new question. Who is ultimately in charge? Who is the sovereign heir of your biology? It's definitely something to think about.
ApexMed Insights methods are a danger to patients.
And to the entire medical system, they should be banned.